Welcome to the Aleutian Islands, to Unalaska. This is the Unalaska I see from my front porch. That's what I've been filming. I'm Marilyn Rasmussen, and this is my cabana high on Nirvana Hill. Cabana is the name of these outbuildings, and Nirvana Hill, well, that story and how it was named we'll tell later. Cabana living is a unique lifestyle, and each cabana is as individual in its makeup as its inhabitant. I'd like to share with you 4 lives, women in Unalaska. 4 remarkable women, resourceful women, who thrive in an environment that some would be less than at home in. One learns to use what exists here. And what exists in the Aleutians? Well, extensive remains of World War II facilities. Part of the resourcefulness of living here is restoring what there is. We'll visit a cabana, a warehouse, and a couple of latrines, and focus on the unique lives within. Beth and Bob Ness moved to Unalaska in 1972. They fished the crab season and left. In 1974, the boat crew decided to see if land was for sale here. They bought land on what is now called Nirvana Hill and moved to stay.
And at the time, we called it the Hill, and the natives had called it Tidal Wave Hill because it was during the 1964 earthquake when they got notice of the tidal wave coming in. They went ahead and all moved up here and sat out waiting to see if there was going to be a tidal wave, which never occurred. And so when we came back in '78, somebody had named it by that time Nirvana Hill, which was the name of the boat that we all fished on at the time. I was always interested in art things. I painted, I've done pottery, I've done all sorts of things, and when I had children that came along, I decided to try weaving because it was something that, with small children, I could drop at any moment and I could do in the house. And one thing kind of led to another where I continued over the years. The arts fair, well, I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm still behind on all my commission things that people have asked me to do, plus gifts that I have put off. Hopefully I will get some things done. I don't know, I'd like to get into clothing. In different places and do ordering and guess at what I'm going to get, because you just get little samples. When I learned to weave, I think one of the interesting things was the woman that I learned to weave had an accident and had only one arm. And so a lot of the taught me, I'm sure, are very, they're different than what most weavers, they're tie-ups and things, because she had to do everything with one hand. And she could tie knots faster with her teeth and her hands than I could ever manage with 2. She was a pretty fascinating woman. I just have run out of space. I have boxes there and stuff. So I really need a place of my own. My first interest right now is getting something set up in the way of a studio. I have a couple leads on places for studios, and one could be in a cabana up here on the hill, and another one I'm working on is hopefully a room in the old mission house, which was the original Jesse Lee home. I don't know if that's a possibility or not. Everything was gutted out, everything was laying around.
It is a latrine.
Yes, the toilets were missing and all that, but there were no windows. I mean, it was just a kind of a shell of a building with a cement floor. Look out in the summer and there's hundreds of different kinds of wildflowers and maybe eagles swooping over. A lot of times I'm looking out, watching for the boat to come home, or seeing who is coming in that you know. I mean, this is kind of a transient place, and when the season starts, all sorts of old friends show up, or I might be watching for the kids, or who knows what, during seasons it changes. What for is to see what the weather's doing and which way the wind is shifted to. And if you go outside, whether you have to put all your rain gear on or whether it's stopped because it's so changeable. The sun can shine, the wind can blow, the rain can come down horizontally, it can sleet and hail all in one day.
Berge lives in the most recently settled community in Unalaska and the highest. Ski Bowl is quite a hike up past Nirvana Hill, and it took a great deal of gumption to winter there last year. I know her only as Berge. Her given name is a mystery to me, but other things about Berge, I believe I understand.
I guess what I like about this place is you can get away from people. You just go climb the mountains and not run into anybody. And I really enjoy that. I was getting pretty tired of the city because I live in Kent. And so I put an application into all the different canneries like Unalaska, almost every one of them. And then Universal finally called me and I came up through Universal. That was May 11th. And I couldn't take it, so I just quit working for them. I'm the janitor at the school and City Hall. It's a job. I like working nights. They leave me alone. I have my days to myself or whatever. Because sometimes I can't talk to people. I get so depressed, you know, I don't like the emotions to come out, so I'll just write. And that way it's a good release. To me, when I was growing up, I was pretty much alone. And I can only handle people on a one-to-one basis, and I don't like groups and stuff. So this is my little sanctuary. I hide out in it. It'd be nasty weather, but I was still real peaceful. Just kind of look out. Yeah, it's Sanctuary Ridge. I'm glad I don't see town. Well, in any of my windows, I can put myself in the country where dairy farms are, or, you know, just anywhere I want to. Mammoth, no, now. Don't jump. Down.
Tell us about your work there, Bertie.
Well, during the winter, the winds come by just nasty, terrible, God. And my inside top plate cracked, so I have to secure it better. And it was really cold. And I like a little more room, too, so I'm digging my foundation down. When I first looked at this place, I was down there, and I said, well, I like it. And when I came up to look at it, there, you know, it was just a solid wall, and I thought, well, that'd be a nice place for a window. And then we had this real nasty storm. It was terrible. And my three-wheeler wasn't running, so I decided to kind of walk all the way over here. I was in a real good mood, and halfway up the hill, I could see my place, and I looked again, and I looked, and my wall was gone. This is my outhouse. I just kind of threw this together. They said it wasn't going to hold the winds, but we had some pretty good winds, and it's still there. Surprise. They said a good wind's going to come, and my outhouse is going to be someplace else. At least I won't have to go in a bucket. That's the whole thing. I have to put a door on, though. Potatoes can grow anywhere, really, but there's a lot of things lacking in this soil. And I planted my potatoes by the almanac and by the moon. The day after the full moon you plant, you know, because it's early season. But there's quite a bit lacking in the soil, but it was worth a try, and they came up. Wasn't working at the school some of the summer. I'd take my baths here, come out with blue feet, blue legs. It was real cold. I like to read poetry out loud. I like the flow of it. If we should go our separate ways, please think of me from long ago days. Remember those days of love that have passed, for you alone shall be my last. And that's all I know. Nobody else was in these cabanas here, and I was up here last winter, and some other guy was living up here, and I asked him if he was going to be able to handle it, and he said no, he was getting out.
Abby Dixon? Well, a remarkable woman, yes. Perhaps her overwhelming range of interest and activities make a brief introduction impossible. I could best describe Abby as a Renaissance woman and let her take it from there.
I decided when I was 7 I wanted to live out here in the Aleutians. My mom was a director of a museum, and all of the people that raised me were people who questioned things and who thought a lot. And some of my earliest memories were being told all kinds of things by the last of the old adventurers, you know, the old gentlemen who had come back from the North Pole or come back from walking around Greenland. And I was always fascinated by Arctic and subarctic places. I sit a lot sometimes in this corner thinking about where I am on Earth. And I'm right here. This is one spot on Earth where I can be found very frequently. Did you ever stop and think about where you are? I'm attracted and I'm fascinated by minutia, little teeny things. The lichens and mosses have always been really fascinating to me. And when I came out here the first time, I was just enchanted by the fact that it was just so wide open. I've been wanting to get back to drawing for a lot of reasons. One, it feels good. It's kind of like meditating when you're drawing. But the other one, too, is I've been designing a house, and I have to be able to draw it. We're building the house in an extremely difficult place, which is up on that saddle up on the hill up there, and it's a straight shot, southeast, northwest, the way the winds blow. Really, the best way to grow things here is out of cover from the wind. And that's southeast, and it just comes slamming right in. So when I first moved into this part of the warehouse, this corner didn't exist. But I made a compost pile, and I saved all my compost and green garbage, and I went around town and collected grass lawn clippings and, you know, all kinds of green mulchy things, and made a lot of dirt. The dirt here, there's really actually not much humus. Most of what you think is dirt is volcanic ash from McCushion, from Bogoslav, aeolian deposits, you know, things that the wind has brought in from other parts of the world. Yeah, and within something like 5 to 7 days after there's a big dust storm in the Great Gobi Desert, the dust lands on Alaska. We're still very much Pleistocene climate. It's like this community. I spent a lot of time thinking about this place before I jumped in to get involved on the council. I tried to think about what the place was like before anybody was here and what it's going to be like after everyone's gone. You know, I thought about all the people that live here, the Aleut people, the white people, the Filipinos, the Vietnamese, the Cambodians, there's a few Eskimos. It's a hodgepodge, a mix of hard-working people. I mean, people that come here work. They don't, most people just don't coast. They work. And I try to think about what we all had in common. What do we, in fact, all of us now today have in common? How many of us are there? Well, there's probably 3,000 or 4,000 people here at any one time. And there's only one commonality. There's only one thing that we all have in common, and that is the fact that right now we are the only people on the face of the earth that live here. It's how to live here without destroying the beauty that's here and the livelihood that's here. And if we don't solve this problem, nobody else is going to solve it for us. We have to do it ourselves. It's a rather remarkable group of people. Fate and the winds have cast us together somehow. I've named all my colors. And this one is the one I told you about called Electric Day Glow Grape Juice. Now I can keep this purple by adding washing soda to it, and I can change it from purple to red by what I call sort of an oxidation reduction process, kind of like indigo dyeing, I think. I'm not really too sure. I've come close to getting it again, but never quite the same thing. Now, after I had a whole gob of wool dyed up, I knit a hat. And first I had to teach myself to spin. The gold in the hat is from a Parmelia variety, and it originally started out to be this color. And it's faded, as you can see. Now, I keep the inside on the inside so it doesn't fade, and these are some of the colors. And this is the original red color that I got. That's all I have left that's spun up. And this is a heather mix of these two golds and these two reds. And this is some of this purple spun with silk. And then these are the natural colors of the wool from Nikolsky. These browns are from Nikolsky. Charlie Purvis was out here. I had a terrible problem with rats in my house. And he's a very, very pragmatic person. And he believes, as I do, that everything has a purpose, even rats. And taught me how to trap them and skin them out. So I skinned them out and I sent them down to San Francisco and had them tanned. I've always wanted to have fur ear flaps on my hats, right? This is an alpaca hat with lichen dyed wool. I'm going to sew the rat fur on the inside and have little rat flaps.
Through adversity. I've heard Kathy say that. Kathy Grimness is Aleut, born in Unalaska. Her grandfather was the last great chief of the Aleutian Islands. While raising 3 daughters, she completed a university degree. 2 daughters are now in college. Kathy strongly feels that each generation of Aleuts must educate themselves to direct change.
Mother was an independent lady when it wasn't fashionable to be independent. I remember her telling me a few things as I was getting older, that remember who you are. Maybe I always felt there was a destiny that I had to do something. I didn't know what it was. I never figured it out until quite a few years later. And I've tried to teach our daughters that. Salt the fish first, and depending on the recipe we found, totally depending on the recipe. For instance, you have to be constantly watching smoked salmon. You can't just leave it. My daughter's the one who smoked these, and she smoked several batches. And this is her last batch that she left before she went to school. I vaguely remember the sound of the Japanese planes when they came in and bombed Dutch Harbor. We lived right now we lived where Nikki's Place bookstore is. That was our house, and so we were able to see everything that was going on. You could see I remember the tanks when they were bombed. I just remember flames for a few days burning in my mind, but we had no place to live. Our house had been just totally destroyed by, I don't know, I guess it was the Army. So my sister her husband had a home right there by the church, and our whole family lived in it, and he had two sisters with children that lived in it, and my sister and her husband and children lived in that house when we first came back for quite a few years. I think our constitutional rights were taken away from us nobody said, you know, do you want to be evacuated? Do you want to leave? I'm sure if they would have asked, everybody in this town would have said probably no. You know, the war was practically over. But I don't think in those days anybody knew enough to say, hey, we don't have to go, or we don't want to go. We were just moved. I think that the reparation would be just, because some of the people that moved back never moved back. Well, they never moved back to what they had before. My dad died before he got a chance to ever live again as a family. Tried to lease a building from somebody, but it didn't work out, and so this was the only place we could come up with, which is my family home. I think some people thought Abby and I were a little bit crazy when we first started to open a bookstore in Unalaska, but we had a feeling that this was a well-read community and well-educated, and it turned out to be. They've totally received us and been very supportive of just about everything we've done so far. Abby really is in charge of the books, and we deal a great deal in how to do books, how to survive up here, how to make things, how to cut your own hair. We kind of try to make things a little bit brighter for the people, the cannery workers who live here and the people who live here. We didn't realize it until we started to look around and realize that's what we were doing. I would like to see the town have a museum in the Bishop's House. It's a beautiful old Bishop's House, and it has the potential for a fine museum. Mostly will be
the problem of getting money for it. These are the kind of things that people would like to know. This is what we had. This are just different points. I would like to see my whole collection go to the museum. I think that's where it belongs. I am on the board of the Unalaska Corporation. I would hope that we would be able to, as a board, direct an orderly development of our resources, or oil development in the area. You can't help but see what's happening. The research boats are out there. They're coming in every 2 weeks. I think it's on us. I only hope that we'll be ready when it happens. I think that especially the women here in Unalaska, maybe other parts, but we have to become independent. We have to be able to teach our children to become independent, and because death up here is so quick.
In a battle of wits, the Aleutians often win. This program has focused on 4 women who not only survive, but seem to flourish here. There's much that hasn't been said, nor is the network of friends, children, husbands complete. But I feel a natural intelligence shines through, like what it takes to build an outhouse the winds won't steal, and a social consciousness, the spark sparked, as Abby said. There are those who care enough to direct the growth and protect what there is. I'm Marilyn Rasmussen. Thanks for watching.